Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Galasso, and I am super excited to be here to talk to you about our newest ASU. So the FASB has issued ASU 2022-03. It's a pretty niche standard, but it is important because it fixes some type of, diversity in practice is the best term for it, from an example that was provided in the codification. So sometimes, again, when you think about these things, it's important that we think about, well, what is the reason why we're having this issue? And so this was issued June 2022. And again, the title is Fair Value Measurement of Equity Securities Subject to Contractual Sale Restrictions. So what are we looking at here? So when we think about contractual sale restrictions, there's a lot of guidance around what can and cannot be included in the decision related to fair value. However, the illustrative example when measuring the fair value of an equity security subject to restrictions that prohibit the sale of the security led to diversity in practice. Again, people misinterpreted how the example worked with the actual guidance within the codification. And so this was an area where we had to spend a little bit more time. And so what are the big areas of focus here? Well, the first one, it clarifies the guidance when measuring the fair value of an equity security is subject to contractual restrictions. It also amends the related example and provides some new disclosures. So what do we mean by the update here? Well, it clarifies that a contractual restriction on the sale of an equity security is not considered to be part of the unit of the account of the equity security. It's really about the holder, right? So the agreement and the relationship there. So therefore, it would not be considered in measuring the fair value of the security because it's not part of the unit of measure. And so if it's not part of the unit of account, it cannot be considered. And again, it clarifies even further that you cannot, as a separate unit of account, recognize and measure the contractual sale restriction. So you basically can't bifurcate it. So examples of this would be where you have something like a lockup agreement or a market standoff agreement, or just any provision within a shareholders agreement with certain shareholders to not sell a particular set of shares, even though those shares are eligible for sale on either a national security exchange or an over-the-counter market. So basically, the person issuing it, the entity issuing it, and the third party agree that they cannot sell them, even though they were otherwise eligible for sale. This is different than, say, it's a share that's not on a market, right? So where there is no market for it, there is not a publicly traded market. In this scenario, there is a national securities exchange or an over-the-counter market where they could sell it, but they've entered into an agreement with the issuer to not sell it. And typically it's for a period of time. So they don't want to, for example, if you have a large ownership, you can just go in and sell it. That would obviously have a significant impact on the share price. And so as a result here, they basically say, hey, in that scenario, when you are not eligible, right, you have these types of lockup agreements or certain agreements, you can't sell them, but that doesn't impact necessarily the value of it, right? So the restriction is not included in the unit of account, and therefore it's not a characteristic of the underlying asset. It's really related to the fact that that entity has come into this agreement, right? And so in that scenario, the equity security is subject to contractual sale is identical to an entity's equity security that's not subject, right? So they have the same value. It's just that this party can't sell it because of the agreement. And so the fair value of the equity security subject to contractual contractual sale, these terms are awful, should be measured on the basis of the market price of the same equity security without the restriction. And it should not be adjusted because of the reporting entity's inability to sell the equity shares. And so they update the language there. They also, again, update the related example to make it consistent with this updated language here. But then as part of it, while we were in there anyway, we decided to add some additional disclosures. And so the fair value of the equity security subject to contractual sale would have to be reflected in the balance sheet as a new disclosure. The nature and remaining duration of the restriction. So what is, how long is this going to last? What type of restriction is it, not allowed to sell anything? What is that period of time? And the circumstances that could cause cause a lapse in the restriction. So is there anything that we've agreed to that maybe if, some type of merger happens or something happens, that the restriction would therefore be lifted? In that scenario, you would have to describe them. So we're providing a little bit more guidance about the restrictions because, again, we're not impacting the fair value, but in this scenario, we're going to provide the users with a disclosure. And so this way they understand the nature of the restriction and then the fair value here. And so in terms of the effective date is for public business entities for fiscal years beginning after December 15, 2023. So that would be calendar 24. And for everyone else that has this, again, these are the private entities. It's for fiscal years being after December 15, 2024, which would be calendar 25. So we have a little bit of a runway in issuance here. Again, we've already gone through 6 months of the year and the FASB's only issued three ASUs. We've got a lot going on. They've done their invitation to comment. They've done a bunch of other items related to the agenda, but they've given us a little bit more of a runway here in terms of what we can consider. And so early adoption is permitted for both interim and annual financial statements that not have been issued or made available to be issued as part of the implementation of this. Again, so if you have a financial statement open, you can early adopt this going forward as you would need to, especially for those entities who have it. So hopefully that gave you a nice overview of ASU 2020-03. We know that the FASB has a really busy agenda coming up. They've issued that invitation to comment to try to understand from agenda consultation what things people are looking to see. So while we haven't had a lot of ASUs issued in the current year, we do know that the FASB is working diligently on several projects, but we also know that people have a lot that's going to already be effective this year. So if you think about it, we already have leases being implemented this year. We have quite a few other standards that are being implemented this year. And so I don't think people are too disappointed that we're only on our third ASU of the year. All right, with that, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope to see you on a future Nano Learning. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.